The early marriages between wealthy American women and the British aristocracy, specifically Jennie Jerome, Consuelo Yznaga, and Minnie Stevens, three remarkable women who were among the first to make this transatlantic leap, paved the way for generations of dollar princesses who followed. But why did they leave? What was the allure of England? We'll explore how, in the late 19th century, British aristocratic marriage offered American heiresses a form of emancipation, self-actualization, and even political influence. Opportunities often lacking within the rigid confines of American high society. For many American women, moving to England offered an opportunity to cultivate a sense of purpose and involvement in public affairs, rather than simply being ornamental figures in elite society. Marrying into the British aristocracy provided a structured role that allowed them to contribute meaningfully to the political and social landscape of their adopted country. American women of the Gilded Age faced a starkly different set of expectations from their British counterparts. In the United States, young men often joined their family businesses or professions by the age of 16, with little time for cultural or intellectual pursuits. By contrast, British aristocrats were expected to travel, broaden their minds, and engage with the arts, politics, and diplomacy before assuming their responsibilities. This created an intellectual and social atmosphere in England that was often more stimulating for ambitious American women. Marriage into the British aristocracy also provided an avenue for these women to exert influence in ways that were difficult in America. In England, aristocratic wives were often active participants in their husbands' political careers, hosting salons, advising on key matters, and moving in influential circles. By contrast, upper-class American women were largely confined to a life of social engagements, luncheons, charity work, and managing household affairs, with little real involvement in their husbands' professional or political lives. This transatlantic migration, therefore, wasn't just about social climbing. It was about self-actualization, engagement, and, for many, political influence. These marriages gave them access to a world where they could be more than just decorative figures. They could be active participants in the intellectual and political life of the nation. The late 19th century was a period of unprecedented wealth in America, earning it the designation, the Gilded Age. Industrial magnates amassed fortunes, which propelled their families into high society. Yet, despite their immense wealth, many American women of this class found themselves in a gilded cage, attending luncheons, leading charities, and navigating social events, but with little direct engagement in political or intellectual life. Their influence rarely extended beyond the drawing rooms of Manhattan and Newport. In essence, they inhabited the role that we, in the 21st century, would call a trophy wife. Their purpose largely to maintain appearances both personally and publicly. In contrast, across the Atlantic, the British aristocracy faced a financial crisis. Old landed families, rich in titles but poor in liquid wealth, were in desperate need of an influx of capital. The solution for many noble families was to seek marriages with the wealthy daughters of American industrialists. These unions were mutually beneficial. American women received titles and social standing, while British noblemen secured financial stability. The scenario created a perfect opportunity for young American heiresses. Their wealth could secure them a prestigious title, and in return, British high society offered them a more meaningful role in their husbands' lives, and perhaps more vocationally fulfilling lives. In England, aristocratic wives often played a significant part in their husbands' political careers, a role rarely available in the United States. Jennie Jerome was among the first American women to marry into the British aristocracy. Her 1874 marriage to Lord Randolph Churchill marked the beginning of what would become a transatlantic trend. With her immense fortune, she secured the Churchill family's financial stability, setting an example for future American heiresses who sought aristocratic matches. Unlike American women, who were relegated to the periphery of their husbands' lives, Jennie took an active role in Randolph's political career. She was known for her charisma, wit, and social prowess, making her one of the most prominent political hostesses of her era. She used her influence to garner support for her husband, and she ensured that the Churchill name remained prominent in British politics. Her keen political instincts and social charm helped navigate the often treacherous waters of British high society. Her son, Winston Churchill, would later credit her with shaping his character and ambition. Jennie instilled in him a deep appreciation for British tradition and governance, while also ensuring he retained a streak of American boldness and tenacity. She was far more than just a socialite. She was an astute strategist who demonstrated how American women in British aristocracy could carve out roles of real influence. Consuelo Yznaga was another early pioneer in this trend, marrying Viscount Mandeville, later the Duke of Manchester. Her marriage marked one of the first major instances of an American heiress entering British nobility, setting a precedent for the later dollar princesses. Her close friendship with another American heiress, Alva Vanderbilt, took a dramatic turn over the matchmaking of Alva's daughter, Consuelo Vanderbilt, into another aristocratic marriage. Alva Vanderbilt, determined to see her daughter achieve a noble title, forced her daughter into a marriage with the Duke of Marlborough, despite Consuelo Vanderbilt's protests. This dynamic between the older and younger generation of heiresses highlighted the pressures placed on these women to secure aristocratic unions, even at the cost of personal happiness. Consuelo Yznaga's own marriage was emblematic of the broader trend, wherein love was often secondary to social and financial strategy. Marrying into the British nobility was not simply about status. It was about survival, ensuring economic security, and maintaining a place in high society. Minnie Stevens, whose given name was Mary, was instrumental in shaping the early wave of transatlantic marriages. Initially turned down by the Duc de Guiche when he discovered that her fortune was not as large as he had hoped, she went on to marry Captain Arthur Paget, the grandson of the first Marquis of Anglesey. He later became General Sir Arthur Fitzroy Paget. Minnie became a key matchmaker within her social circle, helping to connect some of the first American heiresses with titled but financially struggling British noblemen. Her influence ensured that this trend would continue, establishing it as a cultural phenomenon rather than a handful of isolated cases. Through her influence, numerous American women married into the British peerage, which demonstrated that these marriages were less about romance and more about mutual benefit. Minnie cultivated relationships with both American heiresses and British nobility, effectively acting as a broker between the two worlds. Her salons were legendary, bringing together eligible young women and titled but impoverished noblemen. These early marriages set the stage for a wave of American heiresses marrying into British nobility, reshaping both societies in the process. While they often faced struggles, cultural clashes, rigid expectations, and sometimes difficult marriages, many found ways to exercise power and influence that they never could have had in the United States. For the British aristocracy, the influx of American wealth helped sustain estates and preserve traditions that were in danger of collapse. At the same time, these women brought a fresh energy to the rigid structures of British high society, introducing new social customs, fashions, and perspectives. Their influence extended beyond their own households, affecting diplomacy, politics, and even philanthropy. Ultimately, these marriages were not just transactions. They were cultural exchanges that shaped the identity of the Anglo-American elite. While some American heiresses found personal happiness, others struggled with the weight of expectations placed upon them. Regardless of their individual fates, their legacies endure as symbols of ambition, reinvention, and transatlantic connection. So, was it a fairy tale or a strategic move? Perhaps a bit of both.